This is Morbo, the newscaster from Futurama, and you are listening to This Week in Geek with Mike the Birdman and the rest of the Twig crew. They are my favorite puny humans, and when my race absorbs and destroys yours, I shall not do it to them personally.
Greetings and welcome aboard the USS Future Imperfect of the United Federation of Planets. Do we have a registry number? I don't know. Either way, I am not the commander of this vessel. I'm just a lieutenant commander, but I am Lieutenant Commander Birdman, otherwise known as Mike. I'm joined with the captain of one of the Federation's finest garbage scows.
Oh, that's right. I'm the garbage captain, Alex.
And of course, it would not be Future Imperfect without our very own Utopia Planitia, guy in charge of the docks. If it can fly, he'll make it happen.
Utopia Planitia, I'm Aaron Pollyea.
And of course, we bring back Admiralty back to the show as he's returning from shore leave for this episode of Future Imperfect.
Steve Megatron.
Okay, guys, so we have been promising some of these talks for a little while, so we're going to have this episode split into two parts-ish. So how things are going to work, we're going to talk a little bit about Discovery Season 4, but the majority of this conversation will be focused on Picard Season 2, which just finished its finale last week, and then we're going to talk about Star Trek Prodigy, as that's a series that came out over the last little bit, is now fully available on Paramount Plus and on Crave in Canada, so we're going to talk about that as well, and then kind of what we want to see going into season 5 of Discovery and season 3 of Star Trek Picard and Star Trek or season 2 of Prodigy. So first things first, I did not get a chance to watch season 4 of Star Trek Discovery because that's the kind of show I found my enjoyment is better when I can marathon it. Like when I
you can blitz it.
Yeah, like when I reviewed season 3 with you guys last year, Alex and he would come over to my house and we'd watch a few episodes together, and that was better than waiting week to week. Now maybe that's the Netflix effect on television on me, where I just prefer to have multiple things to binge.
I think in this particular case, it's the part of it is a serialization thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like having to wait for a serialization because unless you have this great anticipation, and it did not instill great anticipation week to week.
No,
Mm-hmm.
No.
They were like maybe actually it was last season that had one or two episodes at the beginning where we were like, this season
Not interesting.
Not interested. I can't even personally say if I hated it or it was bad. I was really bored. It felt like this was, and I've seen this with other shows, not just, Discovery. A lot of the shows that were produced during the pandemic, for the most part, they were especially
kind of bland.
Yeah, like some of them had like half of a season in the can, or maybe a little more. But this was the first season of that show that was produced square in the middle of it, and you could tell a lot of the practical sets were gone. It was a lot of green screen rooms, a lot of talking, but talking about nothing. I'm not talking like Seinfeld. I mean, there was a lot of talking that didn't seem to amount to anything.
Absolutely.
I think that you've hit the nail right on the head there.
I've watched it both ways. I watched it first as a week to week, and then I watched it as a marathon. Just because I honestly wanted to see if it changed the way you could watch it, how it was trying to present itself. It made no difference. A lot of the times in the show, on my first viewing, I should say, week to week, I could tell you what would happen next week.
Yeah.
And 3 times I was wrong. What would happen next week was when nothing happened the next week, where it was just a fully filler episode.
It felt like it could have been, this whole season could have been a 2-part TV movie that took 3 hours to do.
Well,
instead of the length that it was.
yeah, I mean, I would agree, but I would say this is the same thing as Picard season 2, and we'll get to that later. That basically you have 10 episodes, 12 episodes that can be put down to maybe 90 minutes, and actually, the story would be much tighter. You would feel like it's wandering around aimlessly less. Let's say.
You know what? I think the effect here is, sorry to interrupt, just final thought on this part of this season. To me, it's suffering from a lot of what the shows since Lost came out started to do, where every season is, we're dangling this little mystery that you have to solve for the whole season, but they have the final destination, but they don't have enough actual content to fill the rest of the season. So you have to fill it with busybody work that doesn't seem to amount to anything. And where it worked in Lost and a couple other shows on TV is you had an ensemble cast that they did build up with great background stories, and you learned about their histories, and it would tell the stories of the events that are happening every episode from their different perspectives to get to that goal. So you had plenty of filler that wasn't really feeling like filler.
Mm-hmm,
we're 4 seasons into Discovery, and we still don't know anything about any cast member that isn't
on the
Burnham,
bridge.
Burnham or Saru. We don't know anything about pretty much anybody.
There is a couple exceptions to that. There are, believe it or not, I'm going to defend Discovery on this in a kind of backwards way.
Okay.
There are 2 times in this season where they try to give background to the characters, and it's through very obvious exposition that in the middle of an action sequence, the plot shuts down, and the character then the character in question goes into an exposition about their backstory that explains why they did what they did. And then the plot starts again. So it's very, very jarring, but it seems like the writers for Discovery have finally heard that, hey, look, maybe we should know about these other characters that are on the bridge. I honestly still don't know the names of characters on the bridge.
I know one of them is named Detmer. She's the cyborg lady.
Yeah, Detmer. I still think of her as like Lisa One Eye, just because of a review I heard at one point.
Because she's the only one where they were gonna give her a bit of backstory, and then they just never did.
And there's Owo. Owo is the her friend that's right at the front of the bridge. She's either the helms person or the
one that's always swearing with her.
Is she the one that has the? Is she the one with the cool hair, or am I thinking of somebody else?
No, you're thinking of the right person, Owo. And the only reason I know her name is because it looks like an emoji that my a teenage kid in my house would be texting.
Okay,
that's the only reason I remember her name.
Well, and the only other one that got any backstory was a few seasons ago, and it was the one that died.
Oh, cyborg lady? The real full-body cyborg lady.
Full-body cyborg lady who has to have her memory downloaded every day. That was actually a good...
I love that idea.
That was a good episode. That was a good backstory. And then they killed the character, so we don't use them ever again.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of... It was interesting. I agree. I actually ended up doing a lot of plot kind of tossing around ideas for plots based on that, like why the cybernetics are like that. What impact that could have on relationships, on training, that kind of thing. Like what's the deal? Why is this such a limitation in the 23rd century? So yeah, it was interesting. I did the thought experiment on it, but
yeah. So like getting back to this season, that's just my thoughts on it. Is that we watched I don't know how many episodes, and I still don't really know what was happening because I was almost falling asleep through most of it.
I found myself fast forwarding through a lot of stuff just because it was there were points that were dragged out, like you guys have kind of mentioned, that could have made it shorter and they could have better utilized those 10 episodes. But I kind of felt like they create this like universal MacGuffin at the for the end of the seasons, and it's kind of blah until it gets there. And then even then some of the stuff is pretty easily resolved, or it's something that watching TNG or something, back in the day with the one-off episode, they could accomplish the same exact thing in a 43-minute episode.
It felt like it was an actual challenge.
Yeah. There was like stakes, and then all the players had a reason to be involved to some degree, or they would actually hyper focus on certain characters instead of having Burnham, come in and save the day for everything. I feel like the older shows kind of gave light to those characters enough so that they could shine on their own.
Yeah, and this season wasn't as, I'll say this, I don't remember a whole ton about it because I thought it was boring. That's better than being offensive to me as much as the third season was.
I found the first season and the third season more offensive than anything else, but season 2 and 4 I wasn't as irritated with, and at least 4 had some glimpses of the hope and humanity and the old Trek that you could kind of expect, even though it didn't hit all the notes. You could feel that they were trying to somewhat get there.
And it's still a little too much with the CGI. And that sounds weird coming from a guy who loves sci-fi. It's just a lot of this, and I think it's possible because it was COVID maybe, but a lot of it felt like people in empty rooms with CGI everything around them.
Yeah, it leaves something to be desired for sure, having all CGI instead of physical sets. There's something that, I don't know, you can't replace a physical set.
And
they did have physical sets, guys. The bridge is a physical set.
Yes.
You remember that there were like
they had to rebuild it for season 4.
Yeah, there's some behind the scenes stuff of them when they float, when they hit the gravitational anomaly, that all the actors are there on the bridge.
It's something
They're
just
on, like,
felt
wires.
weird about then it's obviously something with the visual choice they went with. Everything looks, I don't know, glossy.
Yeah, everything looks fake.
Is it the lighting and the cameras that they're using, like the effects, or are they over modulating it in editing?
It looks like it's maybe post, because I would assume they're using similar cameras for all the shows.
It's one of these things that Red Letter Media says your brain noticed it, but you can't ever put your finger on it. I think I know what it is.
Like, it has this sort of sheen of like plastic, like even though it's technically higher detail than previous Trek shows, everything feels like you're detached, like it's not part of reality.
Well, it's almost like looking at the reboot films where everything was super shiny and sleek, and it kind of looks too pristine to be in the situation that it's in.
Well, here's my two things that I think the reason why it's like this. The hologram controls that are always in front of people ends up like putting a barrier between you and the actors.
Okay, that's what it's like, a screen door effect that I've been seeing with it.
Yeah, but that's not the only thing. It's whenever there's special effects that are practical on set, like flames or sparks, they are mechanically metronome-like. Fire appears out of a specific place on the bridge every 5.2 seconds. Like you can sit there and just go, okay, now it's going to happen.
Oh,
now it's going to happen.
So like while something's happening, it'll shoot at the exact same interval.
Yeah, it's very artificial feeling. I will say that. Like, plus, why are there flamethrowers on the bridge? Like,
okay,
you'll have to go back and
Yeah,
watch it. But like, whenever the ship takes damage, there's fire that shoots out of the walls from very specific places at very specific intervals.
And I mean, obviously, it's a safety thing and make it whatever. Cool.
Sure. No,
But,
from a production standpoint, absolutely, I get it, but it just doesn't look real.
They could almost put like a randomizer or something on it so that they're, a little bit more.
I think they can't do that because they're afraid they're going to burn one of the actors by accident.
That's true.
Because the actors
Also,
all around
open
it
fire.
I guarantee you, any actor right near it is going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're counting in their head. Whereas maybe this is a situation where some CG would have helped by randomizing some extra fire CGI in between.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll see how that goes now that we know it's coming back for another season. Let's move into Picard season 2. Promising first episode.
Oh, for New Trek, that first episode of Picard season 2 is probably one of the best episodes up until Strange New Worlds that like the new series of Star Treks have given.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, like I almost, if you had taken away a couple of characters that I think they shouldn't have kept from season 1, this would have been a pretty good intro. It did look a little sparse. Like it looked, this was filmed, in Toronto, and I think parts in California for certain outdoor exterior shots, but like this was filmed right at the height of the pandemic in Ontario, and it was hard to get a permit to work even at that time. So it looked like, to me, they had a lot of close-in shots. Like Starfleet didn't look as full as it should. If you compare it to season 1, where there were a lot more people walking around and doing things, it felt, the look of the show before going into the actual episodes, to me, it looked like a fan movie. I know there was a lot of budget in here. I don't know how they utilized it. Everything here looked even more hokey and fake than Discovery did.
I have to think it's for protecting Patrick Stewart from...
Yeah, well, obviously he's in his 80s. He had to basically spend a few years in Toronto, because he wasn't going to be flying back and forth.
I'm not gonna be the person to like crap on Patrick Stewart. The guy has paid his dues. He's not in the best shape of his life, clearly, because he is old.
80-something years old, yeah.
He's around the same age as my grandmother, who's like 88, right? So,
and many of the scenes have him laying down, sitting down, or not moving.
That's why I think
is fine. Yeah, it's fine, but don't expect him to perform action scenes, and he's thrust into action scenes all the time.
And from the looks of things, the more I read, a lot of that was his choice. Like apparently this season is a vanity project for him. He got to have one last big hurrah. Well, right? He got creative control of his character for this, and was collaborating on the direction of his character. The storyline that is the underlying storyline with his mother apparently is his own personal dealings with his own mother. And he did an interview just like last week. It was last week or the week before, where he came out and said that he stopped acting like Picard, and in this season he's acting as as Patrick Stewart. So he's given up, I guess, on trying to even portray Picard. So I don't know.
Interesting.
I thought he was okay in this, but I thought he seemed off in a lot of it. And obviously it's an age thing, but you know what? Maybe don't make the premise of the season an action-packed show where he has to be running around on Earth.
Yeah.
You could have done a season like they're probably doing with the next season, where a lot of it is sitting down in the captain's chair or in the conference room. You know what I mean? And you can have the actors who are already themselves, in many cases, most of them now are senior citizens, even though they're young senior citizens. But like, it's a lot easier for, Geordi and even Riker and Worf and all that in their 60s to run around than it is for a guy 25 years older than them.
Yeah.
I mean, like, one of the things that I liked about Jean-Luc this season, I will say, is I felt like we got some really genuine moments out of him. The moment that I think broke the fourth wall, in a sense, when Q and Picard hug, I really felt there was some real genuine warmth in that moment. The only thing that I think was a problem in that episode, and I think it takes away from the entire season, is there was just random moments that were there for no particular purpose. We're going to have to talk about that cameo.
We're going to have to talk about a few. We'll go through briefly episode by episode, but have anybody else noticed a pattern with Picard, the seasons? Each season is about killing off one of the beloved characters. Spoiler alerts, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
in next season is friggin' Crusher gonna die on him?
See, I'm okay with a character's death as long as you can make it meaningful.
Yeah, but is that the point of every season of this?
Well,
it is a pretty crappy way to go.
When I look back at older television, and one thing that would do this almost consistently because of the nature of that show was 24. a major character almost always would die in the course of 1 or 2 seasons.
But did they build up 7 seasons and 4 or 5 movies and all this stuff for 25 years with the same characters, and then say we're doing a revival, but guess what? Each season we're going to kill one of every single character?
I don't think that's the plan.
I
don't think that's their
That's
plan.
how it's turning out.
That's what it might seem like, because I mean they killed Icheb for no good reason in the first
that was
season.
kind of brutal. That I didn't like.
And by the way, did you notice that Icheb is in a Starfleet uniform in that, and now Seven is saying that Starfleet never allowed ex-Borg?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I never caught that. Good.
Yeah,
I did.
and by the way, I can name 4 other characters in Starfleet that are ex-Borg.
Picard,
Janeway, Tuvok, and Torres.
Yeah. So yeah, all the Voyager crew.
Because they were fully assimilated in the Unimatrix
Yeah,
Zero.
they just had memory blocks.
But
Yeah.
remember, it's okay because they were already admitted before they were Borg.
That's such crap. and also remember that no one that we see in season 2 ever gives Seven crap for being an ex-Borg.
Nope.
The only person that ever does is like the person that's like hunting her in one episode and says, get your Borg butt over here or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first
And
episode.
they were like criminals. But everybody in Starfleet seems to be perfectly okay with her.
Well, okay, so I guess brief summary. Episode 1 that we talked about, they brought back some of the hope and optimism. There was a good speech at the graduating class of Starfleet Academy.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
If you noticed, there was no swearing in that episode.
Nope.
I don't even think there was a damn maybe in there. The acting from everybody seemed to be a little higher. I don't know, maybe they did more takes or something, but even some of the characters that we didn't care for in the last season, Elnar and Rafi, were actually decent-ish, even though there's tons of logic gaps and holes and things that don't make sense or things that are hand-waved away.
Well, that's every episode this season.
Yeah, and I know that when we were first watching it, we had a discussion online saying, hey, if this is what they have to do to fix some of the problems of season 1, let them get that out of the way in the first episode. So we gave it the benefit of the doubt, and then it didn't.
There were parts I really did like, though, about this season, and I know I'm going to be in the minority with it.
Okay, we'll get to it.
Maybe.
I'm sure. I think you're crazy for one of your ideas. I already know it.
Because I liked the first episode. I honestly
I did
thought it was
too.
good.
Yeah, so
there was attention to detail that was really uplifting for an old school Star Trek fan like me.
and
Yep.
and a sign that they had been listening to some of the fans, calling them out on being kind of lazy. And
Like the starships.
yes, when the Borg show up, and all of the starships show up to protect Earth. Firstly, they don't all show up in one big flash all at once. They're all coming from different parts of the galaxy to show up. So they you see like poof, 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 but it's all at different intervals in different areas. They're all different classes of ship. The Borg are there, and we end with our cliffhanger where they're going to self-destruct, and there's a snap of the fingers, and bam, Q has put them in the past, or sorry, the present, the sort of alternate present. And
Bubble
we're like,
universe.
cool. Yeah, and we're like, cool.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, cool. Hopefully they don't, mess too much with this, but this is actually a good premise. It's the kind of thing we would have liked to have seen for a season 1. Like if this was the pilot for the season 1, and we would have been like, oh wow, this is actually pretty neat. So it's actually off to a good start. Second episode, we have the alternate history that something has changed, and we're in our present, and everything is Nazi land. It's not the mirror universe. It's just an alternate universe, or alternate history. And for some reason, all of the key characters are in key points of power for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Q planned it.
Yeah, somehow.
Plot convenience.
Yeah, it's plot convenience, but it is actually Q making a bubble universe where these people are exactly where he wants them to be.
Yeah, okay, so that again, good. That can be hand waved away, cool. At the time we were watching it, we're like, okay. And I mean, and I'll say this, when they do fan nods in this series, they do it almost to like a cartoonish degree where it's like, hey, look what we did. whereas it would be a little better if it was more subtle. Because we see, what did they call Picard's trophy room? It was like the conquest room or something like that.
Something
where he has all the severed skulls and heads of people.
Let me tell you, from a guy who loves props, there was some wonderful attention to detail in that scene.
It looked hokey.
You say that though. You say that the Klingon skull doesn't match the actual skull.
It matches a Discovery skull.
Yeah, and I guess
it does not look like. What's his name? Oh, now why can't I?
General Martok.
Martok. If you look at a picture of General Martok, the head ridges are completely different, and it was. And I'm not like the uber nerd, but like I even recognized that right away.
I think the one that I liked the most was the Borg skull and the Ferengi, because I never expected to see that.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, they were all really cool looking. But...
Yeah, they're well made, but again, it was
why
odd and also
a little more brutal than I expected, to be honest.
Well,
but...
I think the problem is Patrick Stewart's age. Like when they're showing him, like, is this his conquest room where he's won, and then when he's supposed to deliver his speeches where he's supposed to be like this bloodthirsty leader, and he comes across as grandpa. He's like, yes, I am. He's trying to do his like best Mussolini, Stalin, Hitler kind of speech. He just doesn't have the energy to pull it off. So he comes across as, it's almost like he's doing an SNL sketch.
Yeah.
And almost every time that he's expected to act, like even in the last season where he had like the French painter's hat on and he's like trying to, all that, it was so hokey. And I know it's what he wants to do, but everything came across as more cringe than anything he ever did with Data in the holodeck. Everything is like a parody, yet it's supposed to be dead serious. So I don't know. Like I don't know if that was supposed to be funny.
Well,
I don't know if it was supposed to be like.
Let's try to be positive. What did people like about the season?
For me, sorry.
I'll get what I liked about the season out first. In that, I found the overall cinematography better this season than last. I do like a good time travel plot. I did think it was a little bit much, like how long it went on, but I do like a good time travel plot. What did I actually like about this season? Okay, I'm done.
I think for me, I really like Alison Pill as Girardi.
Okay, I'm gonna have to. Are you serious? This is what I'm like. Are you serious?
Yeah, I don't know. I think she was fine.
I think she was the worst cast person on the entire show. It's like they plucked her out of a different show with a different looking cast and then plopped her in this, and then I feel like she's what made this whole show fall apart.
I don't know if I would place the blame that squarely on her shoulders.
No, I don't think I would either. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think she was great in this season, but I don't think she was bad.
The singing.
That was a
the
little
singing.
strange.
That whole episode was filler that really didn't need to be there.
Drinking battery acid.
That whole episode didn't need to be there. Okay, let's be fair. The first episode of the season, fine. The last episode of the season, fine. There's your two-parter.
Yeah, I would also say I did like the idea of Elnor and Raffi being close. I just wish it had been played out properly.
It came across as extremely forced. It's, oh my God, this person that we've only ever had on screen together like 20 minutes total time is, it's like my son is dead, who, by the way, she doesn't seem to care about her real son.
Yeah.
Who they introduced and showed that she was a bad mother to.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Who she has he has a son of his own, or I should say a child of his own. Mm-hmm. So she's a grandmother and just doesn't seemingly...
As much as I didn't like Alison Pill, Raffi and Elnor are completely useless in the program. And and the crazy thing is, the actress that plays Raffi, she's actually a decent actress in other things.
Michelle Hurd, yeah.
She is terrible here.
I don't think she
Like,
gets good dialogue for her.
Well, but her delivery is soap opera bad.
Do you think that she just doesn't care?
I don't know. It's,
'Cause, I mean, she's not coming back for the next season, is she?
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
Seven and Raffi come back for season 3. Everyone else is not.
Yes. Confirmed.
Wow.
All confirmed.
Yeah.
So I guess other thing, I like some of the quality of the props. I thought it was kind of a neat idea in the second to last episode where the Borg Queen had kind of a pseudo Borg drone army, but they were using modern firearms. I'm thinking, all right, that's kind of a neat idea. Yeah, sure, why not?
I can say, sorry to interrupt, but I actually do have 2 things I legitimately liked. I don't necessarily like the dialogue, but I did like that they brought Whoopi Goldberg back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not there's elements I didn't care for. I did genuinely see, and you could see they were comfortable around each other. And I also did like the casting they made for Picard's father. Even though he looks wrong, because why would his father look like that when everybody in the family looks different in previous flashbacks? Also, does his brother not exist?
I know they didn't even mention him.
No. They do mention him once in one flashback that he's away at school, but that doesn't really fix the problem of his brother actually being like a part of his life, and he would have experienced the same kind of trauma in a different way and helped Jean-Luc process through it.
Yeah. But the actor they got to play his father is from Battlestar Galactica. He played
it's Gaius Baltar, the guy that played
who
Gaius
by the way,
Baltar.
he's a really great actor.
Oh yeah.
And he was really good in every scene he was in here. So
one of the other things I did like is I liked part of how they dealt with Jean-Luc's mother's suicide. And the reason I like it is it's a heavy thing. And some people that I know, some people that are very close to me, have dealt with suicides, and some people have even been part of the discovery of that. And that does change you a fair chunk. Sure. And I liked how Q's message to Jean-Luc just before he goes is like, I want you to learn to forgive yourself, to live for you, to be in love. Let that be my final gift to you. And I liked how part of grief and part of mourning is learning to know it wasn't your fault. And that I thought was dealt with remarkably well. Like when some of the writing worked and the actors really got a chance to emote and really get something in there, I think there's some wonderful moments. There were some moments with Laris and Jean-Luc, and I know it wasn't as played up as much as it could have been, but the writer in me sees the potential, like how you could develop a romance over the course of a season other than with someone who happens to look like her, sort of thing. Like I would like to see them truly kind of reconcile, but I guess we have that now.
Well, so is she not coming back?
I don't
confirmed nor denied.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I do have a question because I didn't notice it, but I went looking. This might be the only show where a season arc and multiple episodes deal with suicide, but they didn't put one of those disclaimers at the end or at the beginning with a crisis line you can call.
Oh,
nope.
Yeah.
Usually it's like, I thought it was a requirement, even on streaming.
I don't think it's a requirement. I think it's just something people do.
No, I mean in Canada for us, I thought it was a requirement by the CRTC, and it just wasn't there. And I'm like, this is heavy subject matter. And like, even like I've seen episodes of cop shows where it deals with an attempted suicide and they will plaster the end or even at the beginning, with the free helplines and even like websites like BetterHelp and all that sort of stuff, things you can call when you're in a crisis. And I didn't see that at all. And I'm like, that's kind of for an entire season where it's based on the guilt and the trauma of dealing with this. You would have figured they would have, stepped up. And I could understand not putting it at the beginning of an episode because
it's
spoiler, but then you got to deal with trigger, or they would have, if not that, at the beginning, say the subject matter of this episode might be triggering to some, be prepared or whatever. They'll do stuff like that, or at the very end, they'll have something when, it cuts to credits. You'd see that pop up first. But no.
And then I guess the final thing that I liked is the idea with the Borg. That's interesting to me. The fact that Girardi had went back to the Delta Quadrant and had been working with the Borg for 400 years and then come into the future and them asking for temporary membership into the Federation. She's like, I think she said something along the lines of this isn't the status quo yet, but we can work towards something. And the idea of turning the Borg into good guys is not something unheard of. I know there's a series of Star Trek books where the Borg essentially become part of a new race and they're all given a choice to live within the collective or they can go home. And I think I asked this in our chat, but I don't think anybody answered me. I'm like, if the Borg are, let's just say for all intents and purposes, friendly in the future, if you decide you don't want to be part of the collective anymore, can you just leave? Or how does...
The answer would be no. And also, I think that this completely ruins the idea behind that. The purpose of that species is now ruined.
It's to consume.
Yeah,
well, it's not just the purpose to consume. The idea that in this universe, diplomacy doesn't always work, and there's some things you cannot change, no matter how much you try.
The Borg are a force of nature. And now they're not. But here's the thing: you're coming at this from a wrong perspective. If you remember the first episode, they say that rift that's opening up is a dimensional rift. That Borg Girardi Queen brought over the Borg from that pocket universe. She didn't change the Borg in our universe at all.
Okay.
She brought over one ship filled with hippie Borg.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if I like that either.
You know what
I think it's not that great, but there are stories that you can tell from it. I think it's fine.
You know what's a great story you tell with it?
Borg Civil War.
They go through whatever that rift is at the end of the season, and then it ends up they go through there and they end up in, I don't know, they're smack dab way far in the Delta Quadrant or some shit, and they encounter another Borg Queen, and guess what? They don't even assimilate the new Borg. They see them as aberrant, like
as fodder.
Well, no, they see them and they're like, "Oh, you're a cancer among the Borg," and they just kill all of them. And then bam.
A Borg on Borg war might be really interesting, though.
I mean, it's like I said, the Borg thing is interesting. I don't think they handled it well, but there's lots of really interesting possibilities that can arise from it.
And you're right, Michael. Like, it's good in the sense that it brings up interesting questions. I just think that for future canon, it kind of ruins the idea of ever using them again.
I'd like to know who's going to fill that power vacuum.
The Borg.
Yeah.
It's true though. The Borg that Girardi has they came through a dimensional rift. They're from that pocket universe that Q had put everybody. The Borg are still the Borg here.
So we're gonna have a Borg civil war at some point.
So do you think, that or maybe they just won't be called Borg? They'll be called
the Ascended or something.
Dorg.
I don't know. I mean, I liked parts of this season more than I thought I would. And like I said, part of my liking of this is maybe because I'm looking at it from a more introspective angle. Maybe the writers intended it, maybe they didn't. But I like some of the ideas.
The Borg. Like, you really love the Borg.
I do.
And for me, I was never like a huge fan of them outside of the idea that they are a good tool to be used to tell stories. And not that I thought that they were the most important. Like, people think, oh, they're the nemesis of Starfleet. No, they're not. They're the nemesis. Like, every time that they're encountered, they get beaten. They're the nemesis of anybody stuck in the Delta Quadrant until the end of Voyager.
One of my things when I was writing for Star Trek Adventures was, at first I didn't want to write stats for Borg ships at all. I just wanted to say, here's their stats. Yes, that basically you're not going to stop them unless the characters come up with some brilliant solution to stop them. Otherwise, they're terrifying. They should just win. So you need to have good story to come up with to stop them. But obviously that wouldn't fly in a role playing game. Everyone wants stats for things, and I get it. That's fine. But
it's like
that was kind of my point.
Like in Dungeons and Dragons, you have the Lady of Pain.
Yeah, there is always that.
She's not even. She doesn't have stats because you can't kill her.
There is always an old friend of mine said this, and it's very true. He said, "If you stat it, they will kill it." But one book that challenged this was the Babylon 5 RPG. And when you fight the Vorlons, you will lose. What if I use a mass driver? No, even then, you will lose.
Yeah, and if you don't know the story of that, it's watch the game Mass Effect is essentially Babylon 5.
So
the idea of giant godlike creatures that you can't win against unless other godlike creatures happen to go, you're worth saving.
Yeah. So what did you like about this season, Aaron? What are some of your ups for it?
My ups would be when they're in the 24th century, not the Confederation 24th century, but like the regular 24th century. I appreciated the attention to detail and background things. I saw that the production team had actually skilled people involved that knew Trek lore and put them in places that I didn't expect to see really good like lore drops. Like Picard's speech at Starfleet Academy. There are just a string of flags behind him. And I was like, okay, hold on. I know what all the flags are for at least the founding members of the Federation and a few of the other like major planets or polities in the Star Trek universe. And I went through and went, okay. And there were some surprises in there, which ended up making me think that the universe had progressed. Okay, because you saw United Earth in there, you saw Vulcan's flag, Andor's flag, Tellar Prime's flag, which I'm always ecstatic to see because everyone forgets about the Tellarites. But then you also you end up seeing not the Klingon flag, but the flag of Kronos.
Oh,
which is interesting. And then there's like a Bajoran flag in there.
Well, so is the interpretation that that the Klingon Empire has had a civil war?
I think the implication is that the
Empire doesn't exist.
The Empire doesn't exist. The implication of that. But then there's also a couple different Romulan flags there.
So
that when the Romulan Empire fell apart, maybe certain factions joined the Federation.
You could imagine if they're going to fill in with the lore that we've had since season 1, could it be that the Klingon Empire is basically gone because they were fighting the androids?
I don't think so. I don't think that. I think that the Klingon Empire is
or fighting the Romulans.
I think the Klingon Empire is still around. It's just that certain worlds of the former Klingon Empire have joined the Federation, including Kronos, which is weird, which suggests there might have been some sort of civil war after like maybe Martok died
or could
at some point after the Dominion War.
If it's a planetary flag and not a like military or political flag, could it be that they're not full members but they have?
It's possible.
Like what do you call that? Whatever status where it's
affiliate status.
But
then the Klingons have always been they've been affiliated with the Federation since the Khitomer Accords.
So like maybe they haven't officially been read in with full like council standing or something.
But that's weird that it's up there at the Starfleet Academy flag wall where you have full members of the Federation's flags there. But I mean, like, again, I thought it was the attention to detail that really made my mind like click over.
And it's good to hear that the guy that did that first episode and wrote the episode, had all of it designed, is the guy that's going to be taking over as the showrunner for season 3.
I like the fact that the fleet was actually a fleet. Instead of just a copy-paste starship blob. I actually could name starships out of that. And then it turns out that I was wrong as the starship guy because they were mostly Star Trek Online ships that look exactly like other canon ships, which kind of weirded me out, but at least they were all different classes. Like USS Ross was there. And USS Ross looks exactly like a Galaxy class, except it has a different color deflector dish. So I was like, well, that's a Galaxy, but it looks like it's refit. And then I was told, no, that's USS Ross, which is a Ross class. And I thought, okay, so a Ross class is just a refit Galaxy? Like,
I mean, and honestly, I'll take, hey, the studio wanted to do copy and paste again, but they went, no, we already have these we can save money by using assets we already have in the game.
Yeah, you know what?
And then
I'll
rendering
go
it
with
at high
it.
resolution.
I was actually happy to see it regardless, because it meant that somebody wanted to put an actual fleet together. I liked the stuff that was in Starfleet Academy even after the flag wall, like the little attention to detail about starships that were on the plaques behind them, because we actually learn about, like, Uhura actually took command of a starship as a captain later on after Enterprise was retired at post Star Trek 6. That's on those plaques. Like, no doubt. Like, it's little pieces of lore that get added to it. Everything that's in the past, it didn't matter to me, except for one scene in the episode at the gala. And that was with all the spacecraft stuff, when they're in that hall and it's Picard and Renee talking. And there's all these little pieces that are back behind them that are spacecraft of the 20th and 21st century. And obviously, as a space nut, I love that, because you could see little bits and bobs from the Star Trek timeline that makes it different from ours. Like the Nomad probe program had like a plaque in there, well, like a billboard or whatever, a placard, stuff like that. Even Renee points out, like, the SLS Delta shuttle that was supposed to replace our shuttle. That's like the thing that's flying above her head. We actually end up seeing that in the Enterprise opening credits.
Oh yeah.
Things in the montage. I'm like, attention to detail. Thank you. Like, it's the little things like that add or build from the lore that I liked in this season.
Good. I think we're probably going to have to wrap up on here.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I babbled too
no,
long.
no. You know what? I didn't even realize.
What about Steve?
Oh yeah, that's right, Steve.
Don't worry, just not here. No, it's fine. No, so I mean, like, as far as the season goes, like the first episode, I really enjoyed it overall. The last episode, I enjoyed it for the most part, give or take a few things. Especially how quickly they wrapped up the whole season in one episode. I enjoyed Guinan. I enjoyed Q. Some of the stuff like Agent Wells, I was totally pointless.
How about the worst line delivery in Star Trek history with Wesley's cameo?
Oh, that was I was like, oh,
he wasn't Wesley. He was Will Wheaton.
He was Will Wheaton doing his big phony shit-eating CBS please pay me speech that he does every time he does the Trek junkets. I could not believe that made it into the show.
I was a little
Hey,
surprised.
Everybody. Oh, I'm a god now. And I blah, 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 blah. That's what it sounded like.
I was happy to see Wesley Crusher.
Yes.
I'll be honest.
I was happy to see him.
But
happy to listen to him.
It was kind of jarring, the whole aspect that he shows up. I get it. He was trying to correct the timeline by removing Corey from everything after the fact.
I'm a backdoor pilot for a show that people aren't going to watch.
Well, it's like the Gary 7 thing that they tried to pull years, back in the 60s, and it's the same thing. Although now they've tied the Traveler to the Watchers, the supervisors, the Watchers, and so now they're one and the same.
So here's my question, and I just thought of it because of Aaron. Actually, does that mean this Wesley Crusher can travel the multiverse?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a thing.
And I've
Wesley Crusher, the multiverse of madness.
I really don't want to be mean, but have you ever seen another actor who started out at the peak of their acting ability as a child and then got worse as they got older? Outside of him, like, he was better as a child actor in like Stand By Me than he is here in his 40s, and I don't get it. It was like they had him. It's like he wasn't even there. It's like they had him stand in a room.
Man, I'm gonna defend Will Wheaton. Like, I know that you're gonna disagree with me, but I don't think he was there for acting. Like, that's not the point of Will Wheaton being there. Will Wheaton was there because everyone wanted to see Will Wheaton as Wesley Crusher again.
That's
He
fair.
really didn't need to put anything more than what he did into it.
Then why did
Was
he
it good? No, of course
over
not. But
he overacted and enunciated beyond anything anybody should have ever done. It made me want to punch him because it's not how people talk.
Well,
I
it's
think
all
I
those
wanted
years on
something-
Big Bang Theory, so
I think I wanted something more subdued, because if he is going to take Corey out on this wonderful multiversal spanning adventure, it should be like, hey, so don't freak out. I come from a different reality. I am so and so. He gives the speech that he does,
Yeah.
but just be a little more serious with
Well,
it and say, look,
why would he
once
not
you go,
be-
you can't come back.
How is he less mature than he was before? Like, you'd think, like you said, calm. Why wouldn't he be this calming, almost godlike creature? Instead, he sounds like a maniac.
Yeah,
like if
that-
somebody talked to me like this, I would go, "You're off your meds." Like, he sounds like a crazy person saying what he's saying, instead of, like, he could have just been like very chill.
Yeah, like I wanted something more subdued, because I think that would do that character's journey of going with the traveler and traveling the multiverse. That's going to mellow you out, because you're going to see some wonderful things. You're also going to see some horrible things. But
Sure.
if that's the knowledge you have to live with, and if you're inviting somebody on this journey to go with you, much like the Doctor does in Doctor Who, they give you the disclaimer first, and it's not always golly gee, let's go out on this adventure. Like, I remember when the Ninth Doctor said to Rose, one of his first lines was, I'm going to show you the universe. I'm going to show you the day the Earth died, but I'm going to show you all these beautiful things. Are you ready for this? And what we got from Will Wheaton was just something. It's almost like he was doing his character from Big Bang Theory. It's like he was playing an
right.
exaggerated version of himself. Like I said,
And
I
that's
just
what I
want-
mean. Like I'm not trying to be mean. It's just, it was so jarring.
Yeah, I mean, and even bringing back Brent Spiner as a Soong as a bad guy, okay.
He needs to retire.
Yeah, like I wish they just let the Soong legacy be it is.
well,
Let Data's death mean something.
well, let's jump into that part of it. What do you see? How do you see him playing into season 3?
I hope he's just a voice on a computer recording maybe a final.
What?
Maybe they find like a lost log or something.
Why don't you just replace Majel Barrett's voice and have him be the voice of the computer?
Actually, that's not a half
Well,
bad idea.
Or have him when they literally have him be a hologram, so they can make an excuse as to why he maybe doesn't look as realistic. They could use a holographic version of him. Have him be an AI in their computer,
Or do
helps
like
them
the
calculate
books.
things.
Do like the books where they had Noonian bring himself back as a android and revive Data through his body,
Well, the problem,
but he looks human.
but he looks 40 years older and is
No, I mean, but have him look not as Data, but look as a human.
because
do
they've
people-
already killed Data
yeah,
twice now.
But would people want
Yeah.
that though? Like,
I don't know where else they can go with it if Spiner is going to be involved.
Yeah, I mean,
the only thing I could think of, they don't want to have him actually be Data, but like the only homage I could think of would be to have him, like, maybe a nod to it would be in Picard's in his quarters. Only in his quarters, the computer's voice is Data.
I think that'd be nice.
Like just a little nod just for him.
Yeah, I think that'd be nice. So we're going to spend the last little bit of this episode talking about Star Trek Prodigy. This is the animated show that was on Nickelodeon earlier this year and is now streaming on Crave in Canada and on Paramount Plus, and I'm pretty sure everywhere else around the world. This show, Alex and Aaron, and I don't know whether you said this to me, Steve, it was the best Trek that had been out in a long time. And I will admit, I watched about half of the first episode when the show first came out, and I didn't like it. Last night, I marathoned episodes 1 to 9 in one shot. And this was a wonderful Trek experience.
I love it.
This was something, it felt like Voyager to me, where they're always doing something new and interesting. They don't necessarily need to have your Borg or your Klingons or Romulans, but you still got a Telrite, you've got a Ferengi, which I did not expect, and you got Hologram Janeway, which is a big up for me, but it also had the feel of Enterprise, where they're just doing their own thing, they're exploring and they're learning as they go, and all the voice performances were great.
It's the Starfleet Academy or Starfleet Cadets show that they had always rumored that you wanted, but
just younger. The girl who plays Rock, I love that character. And there's one moment. There's one moment where she's like, "I'm scared, Hollow Janeway, go away," and she runs to the engine, or she runs to the mess hall as the ship's about to blow up, and she starts eating, and then she goes back to her bunk. And she's like, "Good night, Dal. Good night, Zero. Good night, Tom Pack," or whatever his name is. And good night, Gwen. And she's accepted the fact that she's alone and she's going to die. There are some brilliant moments in this writing, in this show. I was really surprised.
And the character of Rock is only supposed to be like 8 years old.
Yeah, like there's some emotional depth to each of these characters at some point. I do think the Tellarites may be a little too goofy, but
really?
Rock, Rock, I love.
Remember, the show is targeting like the 8 to 13-year-old market.
Yeah,
but somehow is putting a lot of stuff in there that like all of the parents of the kids will like this.
Yeah, like it's what this makes me think of. This is the Trek version of Star Wars Rebels or Star Wars Clone Wars, where it's just kiddie enough to get people into it, but an older person can watch it and go, "That's some damn fine storytelling." Like that time dilation episode was great.
Oh, stunning episode.
That's the highlight. That is how you take one of the smarter style of Star Trek episodes and make it so that children can understand the concept.
Dude, and that was done in a half-hour episode. Think about that for a second. That story was solid, and it gave you feeling and character growth.
More character growth, more feeling, and not like a manipulated, like the music's playing a certain way to make you feel a certain way. It was written and acted and animated in such a way that you felt more and learned to care more for these characters in that 22-minute episode than some of these previous Trek shows have done in their entire run so far.
There is one moment it's a moment between Dal and Gwen, and they're looking up at the stars, and they notice a star falling out of the sky, and she's like, "Oh, that's one less star now." She's like, "No," and Dal's like, no, it's not. Those stars are fixed point of light. They don't do that. So there's subtle signs, but even as that scene plays out, they want these characters to grow closer romantically. But what this season does, and I love it because it shows restraint, they show a friendship rather than romantic attachment.
Which you wouldn't want in a kid's show anyway.
Well, no, people can have, like, for example, and this is going to be a bad one, but you'll see where I'm coming from. Think of the show Doug. Doug had Patty Mayonnaise, right? So he had a girl that he liked, but it was a romantic thing. With here, Dal and Gwen, he's giving her the space to grow and learn on her own as he's learning and growing about himself, but they don't force it into a romantic subtext. Is it there? Possibly. But when
it's a platonic love.
Yeah, it's good.
You can love somebody not romantically.
Yeah, like that crew's a family.
Well, and exactly. And it might happen over the next 3 or 4 seasons. They're not forcing it. I mean, the characters are supposed to be 17, so out of all the characters in there, they're more of an age where that sort of thing would happen.
I mean, I just want them to be true bro buddies. Like you don't want to see your best friend get hurt. You don't want to see your best friend leave you. I want that. Like, if you want to have a romance in the show, let it develop later. Let these characters be a family. And I think there's wonderful room for growth here. And I did not expect that from a children's show. And there is such a love of the franchise material. I did notice one little problem, and it's only because I'm a huge Voyager nut. Murder Planet is in the Hirogen system. Funny how Voyager didn't mention that, but okay, sure.
Because that might be that might be their homeworld.
Yeah,
That's like the remnants of their home,
is
because
that
the
the
time frame of all of this is actually a little vague.
yeah,
Is that the planet?
yes, Murder Planet, yeah, or Larry if you prefer.
Can I also like geek out about I'm going to geek out about the Tellarite, because I always love Tellarites when they're on screen, because they're on screen so very little.
Mm-hmm.
And Jankum Pog here, well, you might say, oh, he's a little kind of jokey for the kids. He does some epic Tellarite type stuff in this season that just makes it touches my heart. It's wonderful. Like when they go out on Murder Planet, Tellarites are always going to be the argumentative, devil's advocate, people that are going to be contrary, because they're generally wanting to challenge people's preconceptions about things. That's kind of what their culture's about. So what does Jankum Pog do? He walks out onto the Murder Planet in a full EVA suit, and they're all looking at him like he's crazy. It's a Class M planet. We can breathe here. And he goes,
And he's like,
you haven't checked for diseases.
Yeah,
You don't know what's in the environment.
He's like, Jacob Pod isn't going to be fooled. You're the crazy ones.
Yeah, exactly. And that's perfect. I cracked up.
Well, he's like, oh, you won't be making fun of Jacob Pod when Jacob Pod's walking back and everybody else is dead.
Yeah.
There's a moment in that episode where he uses his helmet for soup.
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny and clever.
I mean,
love
they
that
are
character.
one-off episodes, but they do have that goal, that Voyager goal of getting home, right? Or sort of getting home, going somewhere.
I feel like Hologram Janeway is like an awesome character. Like even though she is a computer program, she's showing growth. Like she's an actual character. She's not just like a simulation.
And the B and C plots of running through it are great too. You've got each episode's the one-off where people are learning things about each other or learning. Then you have your B plot, which is the junk planet people. Why do they want the protostar? And then you have your C plot, which is the Janeway hologram trying to figure out what happened to the crew on the ship, and things that are locked away. Why were her memory banks erased? Why were what's happened to the ship? And you get cameos near the end, but also I should point out, like, we're not going to go over every episode here, obviously, but there is the episode, the Kobayashi Maru episode is fantastic.
Yeah. That's the first episode I watched in its entirety when you told me to get prepared for this show months ago. And it didn't catch me until I seen everything previous. Like, because I all I knew that Del wanted to be a captain because every kid wants to be in charge. And then he sees the challenge of leadership. And if I hadn't seen the Murder Planet episode and everything leading up to that moment, I lacked the context. And this show carries enough from each episode. So like Aaron said, you're seeing growth in each episode, and it sneaks in enough STEM, which is what's it stand for, Aaron? Science, technology, engineering, and math. Yeah. And it sneaks in, like when they go to that binary star system, they're explaining a concept that a child might not get unless they're a super dork or they love Star Wars. They explained it in a good way, I thought.
Well, and not to mention the Kobayashi Maru, when he tries it over and over and over again, and isn't getting the point, is still being a stubborn kid, but comes to the solution, or one of the solutions that you or I or anybody that's a Trek fan would have figured out. Why don't I just fill my holographic crew with the best? So he fills it with the crew of the Enterprise unknowingly. And the fact that they used archival audio footage or audio clips, that almost brought a tear to my eye.
The Odo stuff was great.
You hear Leonard Nimoy, and Leonard Nimoy and like James Doohan, man, that tears me up.
And then of course we got the final two-parter where it leads into the next season, and we get the glimpse that Chakotay was the captain of that ship, and what's happened to him. Dun, dun, dun.
It's actually not the next season. It's going
part
to be
one.
A continuation of the first season. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, because it's a 20 episode season split in two because of pandemic production issues. But still, this until Strange New Worlds aired this past little bit, was like we were saying, Michael, this is the best Trek since 2005.
Yeah, I'm actually going to start watching Strange New Worlds. We're recording this on a Tuesday. Strange New Worlds comes out on Thursday, so I'm going to watch 2 or 3 episodes in a row, and then I think our plan is after 5 episodes, we're going to do our impressions.
We'll do a halfway through because just timing wise, that makes more sense. And I also think that instead of waiting for a whole season, we're probably going to have a lot to talk about with it. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a good time to be a Trek fan now. I mean, you look at all the supplemental material that's out there. You've got Strange New Worlds, you've got New Discovery, you've got Lower Decks coming back later on this year. We're going to get the second part of this. And it's funny because I remember saying years ago, I was wondering if Star Trek was a dying brand. And I think we're starting to get enough new blood in the franchise now that, Paramount's willing to commit resources to it. Star Trek 4 is going to happen.
Well, and it looks like they're willing to make different projects for different audiences. There was the worry that everything was going to be one vision.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing as of this year specifically, that's not the case.
One of the things that gives me hope for the franchise, and this is something Aaron can actually probably speak to, the fact that a major license holder like CBS Paramount handed over the Star Trek license to a role-playing game developer, because a lot of people with big IPs don't just hand these things over without a really good plan. So this is bringing new people into the hobby. Like, Star Trek fandom is growing. Like, one of the things I've always wanted to do, and I think it's a realistic possibility now, is there might be real Star Trek conventions that, I'm not saying they're going to rival like a PAX or an Anime Expo or something, but I would love to go to one. Like, I've went to Toronto Trek once in my life, and I'm actually feeling connected with the Star Trek community. There's a guy I know on YouTube who does, his channel's called Lore Reloaded, and he does a lot of Star Trek kind of breakdowns on stuff and arguments, pro and cons for stuff.
I've watched some of his stuff.
Yeah, so it feels good to be a fan again, and just
later on this year, we've got the Telltale Games role-playing adventure game coming out.
Yeah, like
the video game. So there's that, which is like the point and click, choose your own adventure, Life is Strange style of game. And then I'm wondering, like, I would love to get a video game, even if it's a kid's video game based in the Prodigy universe.
Yep.
Like, just even if it's an action game, whatever, if the writing is the same, like this is opening up, because the last time we had a Star Trek game, and I'm not counting like the expansions to the MMO, was what, for the movie in 2010?
Well, you can play Prodigy in Star Trek Adventures, but that's a role-playing game.
No, yeah, sorry, I'm saying video game. Sorry.
Yeah.
The last time we had a video game was what, like 12 years ago or more.
Actually, speaking of the video game, Steve, I think you watched some of the live stream stuff that covered Star Trek Online, right? And you're kind of the guy who still has your head in that headspace. What's going on?
Well, Star Trek Online, they're still going, obviously. They're still innovating. They're still redoing a lot of the graphics and things like that, and trying to connect it with the various series that are out right now. So like parts of Picard, parts of Discovery. It's very heavily Discovery and Mirror Universe oriented right now with its expansion packs after they finished like the Deep Space Nine run a year or two ago. And right now they're using, like, they have Admiral Janeway in the program now, in the game now, which is kind of reminiscent of the Prodigy run. Only this time, not only is she in there, but Mirror Universe Janeway is in there, and they have Killy and that whole angle, and Admiral Lita, and they're about to have the expansion come out. I want to say in another week or two, and it's expansion as in a couple episodes, but they're touching on the whole V'ger and Ilea angle. Like, Ilea just ends up in a starbase, like just reappears and ends up in a starbase, and they're doing research in the Mirror Universe. Emperor steals her body from this Starfleet installation, and they don't know why she reappeared.
So it's really like filling in it's become like all of the fan fantasy works are
Yeah,
filling in
well,
the gaps.
what I like about Star Trek Online is, one, it seems a lot more put together and less convoluted in some degree of some of the various things, but it fills in a lot of the gaps that various Trek stories leave, or some of the one-off storylines that had an interesting premise but went nowhere in the show. They kind of pull on those threads in the game. And so a lot of it's, time travel, a lot of it's, predestination things. And, much like what you would expect from a regular Star Trek series. The only reason I honestly continue to play the game is because these expansions and these storylines build on the richer aspect of the universe of Star Trek. Yes, a lot of the more recent expansion stuff covers the new Trek angle, but ultimately a lot of it still is highly influenced by the old stuff, and I find it very entertaining when new content comes out for it.
So that's still going. Like Alex mentioned, we've got the Telltale games, we have the role-playing game. The Eagle Moss ship line is still going. It's an interesting time to be a fan. If I did have one complaint, can StarTrek.com please ship to Canada? I just want an Enterprise hat.
Question: can we just get a StarTrek.ca so we don't have to deal with that?
Import it? Yeah, exactly. So it's been a good time. So guys, we're gonna bring
partner with like GameStop Canada or like Spencer's or somebody we actually have here.
Yeah. Like, we just want to support one of our favorite IPs. Not everyone's going to agree with every series, but the fact that we're trying out different ideas is interesting. So in season,
absolutely.
Yeah, I love that we're getting different flavors of Trek. So while you may hate one aspect and you may not, feel drawn to that one particular series, there's always another one around the corner.
Yeah, and it's when you think about it, we're in the 80s and 90s again with so much Trek on TV. It's hard. It could potentially be hard to keep up at sometimes. I know I myself am really looking forward to the animated stuff. I love Lower Decks. Prodigy just gained a tremendous new fan in me. I want a Murph Stuffy. I'm just putting that out into the kind of universe. And I don't know. It feels good to be back in the captain's chair again. Like, I had all the Playmates toys. I have bought the Art Asylum Borg assimilation figures on eBay because I got them for a stupid low price recently. And nice. I actually got my first custom figure, and I didn't even realize it. I have a custom Cardassian Borg based upon the Art Asylum. He's got more articulation. There's like some slight kind of retooling to him. But it feels kind of cool. And I'm just, honestly, guys, I'm just happy to be here again. And it's kind of nice after all the times we didn't have as much fun with Trek. This feels like we're in a good place for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with all that being said, guys, hopefully you will email the show if you have any questions, comments, or I don't know, if you want to open hailing frequencies and swear at us in Gorn. You can reach us at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. You can also follow us on Twitter at the exact same name, @thisweekingeek. You can also bug me or Alex on there. Our social handles are not hard to find. Steve, if people want to find and communicate with you, how would they go about doing that?
They can find me on Twitter at SCP21.
All right, guys. So before we push off here from Space Dock, going out into our next mission into the great unknown, I'm not quite sure what we're going to be talking about. We could talk about more TNG. Maybe we'll talk about a different franchise for an episode. But either way, you come to this podcast because we talk Trek, we talk future tech, we talk everything sci-fi. So until next time, for the USS Future Imperfect and our sister ship run by my co-host from Kitchener,
we've been Alex.
And the guy who makes sure everything gets off the ground every single time.
Oh, is that me? That's Aaron.
That is Aaron.
Hi.
And of course, making sure that we're following canon as close as we possibly can.
At least to the video game.
Steve Megatron.
And of course, I have been your Lieutenant Commander. I have been Mike the Birdman. So until next time, folks, live long and prosper.